The night 7 years ago still haunts me, like a nightmare I can never wake from. I have carried a blind drunk Ethan Carter into a hotel suite, slipped off his jacket, and wrung out a warm towel to gently wipe his face. Without warning, he grabbed my wrist, hard, and yanked me onto his chest. "Don't go." His breath was hot and heavy with whiskey, burning my neck. I tried to push him away, but he flipped me over and pinned me down. "Ethan, you're drunk. Let me go." He didn't hear me. I'd secretly loved him for 4 years. I never imagined our story would start like this. When it was over, I curled up at the foot of the bed, shaking. I loved him, but I had no idea how to face what came next. Half asleep, Ethan suddenly put his arm around my waist and mumbled, "Clara, I'll make an honest woman of you." His voice was soft, like a dream or a promise. I froze, staring at his closed eyes, my heart pounding. In that moment, all the pain and unfairness of the past years melted away. Maybe he does care, I thought. Maybe the alcohol just made him lose control. Maybe when morning comes, he'll remember. Maybe he'll keep his promise. But when he woke up, the look he gave me was pure shock and cold disgust. "How did you get here?" He sat up fast, jaw tight, brow furrowed, staring at me like I was something dirty. I opened my mouth to speak, but he was already out of bed, pulling on his clothes with his back to me, his voice sharp as ice. "Forget what happened last night. Not a word of this leaves this room." The door slammed shut. I sat curled in the messy sheets, and it hit me, those words, "I'll make an honest woman of you," might have just been my imagination. He never mentioned it again. Not once. Not in all the years that followed. 6 years passed. I went from that hopeful girl to just another invisible, ordinary assistant at Nova Enterprises. I sat at my desk in the open plan office, staring blankly at spreadsheets, my fingers moving mechanically. My desk neighbor chatted about lunch, and the hum of the break room coffee machine drifted through the air. Everything was painfully normal. My smartwatch buzzed, then my phone. I glanced down. It was a text from my 6-year-old son, Toby, sent from his smartwatch. "Mommy, I helped Mrs. Smith next door pull weeds today. She gave me $20 whole." He added a proud little sticker. I smiled. I was about to reply when another message popped up. "With the money I've saved, I can buy a huge pizza. Mommy, today's my birthday. Is Daddy coming home to eat pizza with us?" My smile froze, warmth draining from my chest. I stared at the words, a familiar burned building behind my eyes. Toby was 6. In all that time, Ethan had never spent a single birthday with him. Worse, he never let Toby call him Dad. "Call me Uncle." Every time Toby timidly whispered, "Daddy," Ethan's face would darken, and he'd snap the correction. Eventually, Toby stopped. But I knew a small, hopeful part of him was still waiting. I took a deep breath and looked through the glass wall into the break room. Ethan was standing there. He was leaning down slightly, the corner of his mouth lifted in a soft, tender smile I'd rarely seen. And right in front of him stood Chloe Miller. She held a coffee cup, tilting her head up to talk to him, laughing at something, playfully tapping his sleeve. Ethan didn't pull away. If anything, his gaze softened. When some interns walked by, he shifted sideways without thinking, shielding her against the counter. The sight cut through me like a knife. I looked down, my finger hovering over the phone screen for a long moment, then typed, "Today's Toby's birthday. Will you be free tonight?" I hit send and waited. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. A full minute. Through the glass, I watched Ethan pull out his phone, glance at it, swipe once to dismiss the notification, and put it back in his pocket, all in less than 3 seconds. His face was blank. He went right back to talking to Chloe. I flipped my phone face down, blinking hard to push back the bitter burn in my throat. I should be used to this by now. My gaze drifted across my desk and landed on a plain envelope tucked in the corner. It had appeared that morning, no return address, no name. Only a line of small, embossed print in the bottom right corner, "Family from the House of Bennett." The envelope was thick, handmade cotton paper, rough under my fingers. I picked it up, turned it over, but didn't open it. I pulled open my desk drawer and shoved it to the very back, under a stack of dusty old files. When I looked up again, the break room was empty. Ethan and Chloe were gone. The corridor was silent. My phone screen stayed dark. My text had sunk like a stone into the ocean, with no reply. I forced a bitter, empty smile, lifted my mug, and swallowed a mouthful of cold water. Toby, Mommy doesn't know if Daddy is coming home either. But Mommy will be right here with you. Always. After work, I went straight to the kindergarten to pick up Toby. The second he saw me, the first words out of his mouth were, "Mommy, today is my birthday." His second words were, "Mommy, is Daddy going to celebrate with me?" Standing on the crowded sidewalk, my eyes burned red instantly. I squatted down to straighten his collar, my throat tight, not knowing how to answer when my phone buzzed. I looked down. It was a text from Ethan Carter, free. Come home. For words. That was all it took for tears to stream down my cheeks. I wiped my eyes hard, held the phone screen out to Toby, my voice shaking. Toby, look. Daddy said he's free. He's coming home to celebrate your birthday with us. Toby froze, then a huge, bright smile spread across his little face. He threw himself into my arms, his small hands locking around my neck, his voice high and giddy. Is Daddy really coming home? Really? Mommy, you're not lying, are you? I'm not lying. Mommy is not lying to you. I held him tight, laughing through my tears. For the first time in 6 years, Ethan was willing to spend his son's birthday with us. I didn't even wonder why he'd changed his mind. My chest was filled with burning, giddy joy. Let's go buy a pizza. I took Toby's hand, my voice light. What flavor do you want? Super Supreme. Toby jumped up and down, then stopped, tilting his head. Mommy, I earned $20 helping Mrs. Smith pull weeds. I want to pay for it myself. This is the pizza I'm buying for Daddy. My throat tightened. I squatted down and kissed his forehead. Okay, Toby. You're such a good boy. We bought a giant Super Supreme pizza, plus balloons and shiny streamers to decorate the house. When we got home, I let Toby blow up balloons in the living room while I went into the kitchen and pulled out every ingredient I could turn into a meal. Roasted ribs, stir-fried greens, corn chowder, all the dishes Ethan used to love. Toby tied balloons to the backs of the dining chairs, then lined up his toy cars neatly on the coffee table, saying he wanted to show them all to Daddy. He even snuck quietly into the bathroom, practicing saying happy birthday to himself in the mirror. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching his small back, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes again. Dish after dish was set on the table. The warm, savory smell of pizza filled the whole living room. Every few minutes, Toby would race to the front door, pressing his ear against the wood, listening for the sound of Ethan's car. Mommy, why isn't Daddy here yet? Maybe he's stuck in traffic, baby. Let's wait a little longer. Toby nodded obediently, climbed onto the sofa, hugged his small pillow, and stared at the front door without blinking. 1 hour passed. 2 hours passed. The food went cold. I carried it back to the kitchen and reheated every single dish. The cheese on the pizza hardened, so I put it back in the oven. Toby moved from the sofa to the floor, his chin on his knees, his little head nodding lower and lower. Toby, sleep if you're tired, baby. I walked over and lifted him into my arms. He rubbed his eyes, his voice small and sleepy but stubborn. No. I want to wait for Daddy. He said he'd come. I held him tighter and said nothing. After who knows how long, the child in my arms finally couldn't hold on any longer. His eyelids fluttered shut. I patted his back gently, listening to his steady breathing. The burning joy in my chest had long gone cold, as lifeless and hard as the pizza on the table, reheated and cooled again and again. My phone screen suddenly lit up. I picked it up. It was an Instagram post from Chloe Miller. The stars are so beautiful tonight. The photo was of a Ferris wheel, taken from high up inside the cabin, looking out over the glittering city lights. And in the reflection on the glass, 2 figures were perfectly clear, Chloe Miller, holding her phone up to the window, and Ethan Carter, his face in profile, looking down at his phone with that relaxed, gentle smile I hadn't seen in years. A Ferris wheel. He'd taken her to ride a Ferris wheel. Today was his son's 6th birthday. I stared at the photo for a long, hollow moment, then let out a soft, bitter laugh. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I just found it absurd. Absurd that I'd still let myself hope. Absurd that my son had waited up all night for his father, while that same man was on a Ferris wheel with another woman, staring up at the stars. Suddenly my phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with the name Ethan Carter. I hit mute, glanced down at Toby sleeping soundly in my arms, waited a few seconds, then answered. Clara. His voice was tired, with the distant hum of traffic in the background. Sorry, there was a last-minute business dinner I couldn't get out of. You and Toby go ahead and eat. Don't wait for me. A business dinner. I opened my mouth to say something, but then I heard a soft, sweet female voice on the other end. Ethan, my shoelace came undone. Wait for me, okay? The voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the night, every word was crystal clear. My hand holding the phone shook a little, but my voice came out strangely calm. Okay, I see. Then I hung up. In my arms, Toby suddenly stirred. His small hand fisted in the collar of my shirt, and he mumbled in his sleep. Mommy, you work so hard. I looked down at him. He wasn't awake, just talking in his dreams, his little brows slightly furrowed, as if even in his sleep he felt sorry for me. Tears finally spilled over, falling one by one onto his soft hair. I laid him gently on the bed, pulling the blanket up around him. He rolled over and mumbled again, soft and sleepy, Mommy, thank you for having me. You worked so hard. I couldn't help but smile, then cried while smiling. He was only 6. A 6-year-old boy who'd waited all night for his father still knew to tell his mommy he was sorry for how hard she worked, even in his sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his sleeping face. The decision I'd hesitated over for so long finally settled, solid and unshakable, in my heart. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in years. My finger hovered over the call button for a few seconds, then pressed. The phone rang twice before it was answered. On the other end came a steady, deep male voice, laced with surprise and warmth. Child, have you finally decided to come home? I gripped the phone tight. My voice was a little rough, but firmer than ever. Dad, I want to bring Toby home. I want to give him a real home. There were a few seconds of silence, then the voice spoke again, more serious. You can come home, but you need to think clearly. To return to this family, you must leave every part of your past behind. That man, that place, those memories, none of it can come with you. Can you bear to let it all go? I closed my eyes. Before me was Toby's furrowed little brow as he slept, the cold pizza on the table, the gentle smile on Ethan's face in the Ferris wheel reflection. I can bear it. I opened my eyes, my voice soft but heavy with resolve. I will leave everything behind. I'm bringing Toby home. Good. The man's voice finally softened, warm with relief. Then come home. The door is always open for you. I hung up, walked back to the living room, and dumped every cold dish into the trash. The pizza too. I pulled down the balloons, tore off the streamers. The room was clean again, as if nothing had happened tonight. Only Toby's small pillow still lay crooked on the sofa, with the faint indent where he'd sat waiting for his father. I picked up my phone and sent Ethan a text. Toby is asleep. You don't need to come. He didn't reply. I didn't wait for one either. The next day, I went back to the office to hand over my work. I'd barely sat down at my desk when Ethan walked over, carrying a fancy cake box. Toby's birthday cake. I forgot to give it to him yesterday. He set the cake down on my desk, his tone casual, like checking off a routine task. I paused, then lifted the lid. The cake was beautiful, covered in soft buttercream frosting, topped with golden crushed peanuts. It looked delicious. Crushed peanuts. I stared at those tiny pieces, and a cold, bitter smile slowly spread across my lips. Toby is deathly allergic to peanuts. When he was 2, he ate a single piece of peanut brittle, broke out in hives all over his body, and spent a day in the hospital on N4, his little face so swollen I barely recognized him. After that, I cleared almost everything with peanuts out of the house. Even his kindergarten had a big, red allergy note in his file. And his own father didn't even know. Thanks. I pushed the cake box aside, my voice as calm and flat as if I were talking to a stranger. Ethan didn't notice the shift. He stood across from my desk for a moment, like he was weighing his words, then finally spoke. Clara, there's something I want to talk to you about. I looked up. Chloe's car broke down yesterday. The apartment she rents is too far from the office, and she's not used to staying in hotels. He paused, his gaze drifting away. Your place is really close to the office. I was thinking, could you and Toby stay in a hotel for a couple of days? Let her move in temporarily. I froze. You mean, for Chloe Miller, you want to kick me and my son out of our home? Don't make it sound so dramatic. Ethan frowned. It's just for a couple of days, until her car is fixed and she finds a new place. I'll pay for the hotel, obviously. I looked at him and suddenly laughed. Not a bitter laugh, not a cold laugh, a real, disbelieving laugh at how absurd this was. So this was what the last of my hold on this marriage had come down to, this house I'd lived in for 6 years. The walls where Toby had held on while taking his first steps, the crayon drawings on the fridge, the sofa where I'd sat up night after night waiting for Ethan to come home. I'd thought there were so many things I couldn't bear to let go of. But when he said those words, I suddenly realized losing it all wouldn't hurt half as bad as staying. Okay. I nodded. Ethan clearly froze, shocked that I'd agreed so easily. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but in the end only added stiffly, I'll make it up to you. I didn't answer. I just lowered my head and kept sorting through the papers on my desk. That evening, I went home and packed 2 simple suitcases. When Toby came home from kindergarten and saw them, his little face was full of confusion. Mommy, where are we going? Mommy's taking you to stay in a hotel. One with a really big bathtub, okay? I squatted down, trying to sound cheerful. Toby blinked, didn't ask any more questions, and sweetly helped me tuck his favorite little pillow into the suitcase. After dark, I pulled one suitcase with one hand and held Toby's hand with the other, walking out of the house I'd lived in for 6 years. Just as I opened the front door, I ran straight into Ethan bringing Chloe Miller home. He was pushing Chloe's bright pink suitcase with one hand and carrying several shopping bags in the other, his head tilted down to talk to her, wearing a relaxed, easy smile I'd never once seen directed at me. Chloe was wearing a new dress, her arm looped through Ethan's, practically hanging off him. When they saw us, Ethan's steps faltered for a second, a flash of panic in his eyes, quickly hidden. Chloe spoke first, her eyes sweeping over me and Toby, her voice sickly sweet. Oh my, isn't this Assistant Carter? Where are you off to with all that luggage so late at night? I didn't say anything. I pulled Toby aside, trying to leave. But she acted like she hadn't seen me trying to step away, continuing to smile, her voice just loud enough for everyone in the hallway to hear. Honestly, thank goodness you're moving out. I finally get to move in. I've wanted to live in this house for ages. Such a great location, beautiful decor. She covered her mouth with a laugh, then purposely lowered her voice, just loud enough to echo down the hallway, though I can't help but wonder, wasn't it a little much for Assistant Carter to live somewhere this nice? After all, some people's salaries barely stretch to a budget motel, don't they? Toby suddenly stopped. He looked up, his little face bright red, tears shining in his eyes, but he held them back. He stared at Chloe Miller, his voice clear and sharp. That's a lie. We're not moving because we want to. Bad people are kicking us out. He held my hand tighter, his voice shaking, but every word clear and unwavering. I won't let you say mean things about my mommy. The hallway fell silent for a beat. Ethan's face twisted. The words bad people stuck to him like a needle, pricking at his pride. He looked at Toby, his lips moving like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. I squatted down, pulling Toby into my arms, and whispered softly, Toby, it's okay. Mommy's fine. Let's go. I stood up, pulled the suitcase, held Toby's hand, and walked right past Ethan. As we passed, Ethan suddenly reached out and clamped down on my wrist. His fingers were ice cold, his grip so tight it hurt. Clara. I didn't look back. Let go. My voice was very soft, but calmer than ever. Behind me, Chloe's voice rang out again, laced with hurt and petulance. "Mr. Carter, why are you grabbing her?" Ethan ignored her. He just held my wrist, silent for a long, heavy moment. Ethan held my wrist, his fingers tightening little by little, like he was scared I'd disappear the second he let go. His eyes fell on Toby's face. The little boy was staring up at him, eyes red, lips pressed tight, his gaze full of stubbornness and hurt. Bad people. His own son had called him a bad person. Ethan suddenly felt like something had slammed into his chest, knocking the breath right out of him. He opened his mouth to explain, but looking into Toby's clear, innocent eyes, every word stuck in his throat. He'd never known this was how his child saw him. For 6 years, he'd found Toby annoying, loud, always showing up at the worst times. He'd made Toby call him uncle, told him to keep his distance in front of other people. He'd thought children were young, that they didn't understand anything, that they'd forget after a couple of years. But children remember everything. Toby. Ethan let go of my wrist, crouched down, trying to make his voice warm. "Uncle heard yesterday was your birthday, right?" Toby didn't say a word. He just stepped back, hiding behind me. Ethan felt a sharp twist in his chest, but still forced a smile. "I got a birthday present for you. I forgot to give it to you yesterday. Wait here, I'll go get it." He stood up, walked quickly to the car parked at the curb, opened the back door, and pulled out a cake box. I recognized it instantly. It was the same cake I'd pushed aside on my desk that morning. The box still had the bakery's label, the soft buttercream frosting, the crushed peanuts on top. Ethan walked back with the cake, crouched in front of Toby, and opened the box, his voice laced with forced warmth. "See? It's a cake. Do you like it?" Toby looked down at the cake. He didn't make the surprised, happy face Ethan had expected. He just stared quietly at the crushed peanuts, his little face slowly turning pale. Just then, Chloe stepped over in her high heels, put a hand on Ethan's shoulder, tilted her head to look at the cake, and suddenly laughed. "Oh, this cake." Ethan frowned. "What about it?" Chloe covered her mouth, her tone light and casual, like she was just mentioning something in passing. "I bought this cake yesterday. I took one bite and didn't like the taste, so I left it in the office break room. I didn't expect you to bring it here, Mr. Carter." "Well, it's better than throwing it away, isn't it? Perfectly fine for a little one to have, I should think." She finished with a sweet smile at Toby, a smile that oozed snobby, patronizing charity. Ethan's face changed instantly. He turned to look at Chloe, his eyes cold enough to freeze water. Chloe flinched, shyly pulling her hand off his shoulder, mumbling, Did I say something wrong?" Toby stepped back again. He looked up at the cake, his voice small, but every word clear. "This is a peanut cake." He looked up at me, then at Ethan, his small hands fisting tight in the hem of my shirt, biting his lip as he said, "I can't eat peanuts. If I eat them, I get really sick. Mommy says anyone who gives me peanuts is a bad person." Ethan's pupils shrank. Toby looked at the cake again, his voice even softer, so quiet it was almost like he was talking to himself. "And I don't eat other people's garbage." The hallway was so quiet you could hear the wind rustling the leaves outside. Ethan's hands, holding the cake box, were shaking. His face looked like someone had just slapped him as hard as they could. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but his throat felt blocked, unable to make a single sound. I squatted down, pulling Toby into my arms, and whispered softly, "Toby's right. We don't eat garbage. Let's go." I stood up, grabbing the suitcase handle again. Toby stayed pressed tight to my side, his little hand holding the hem of my shirt, never looking back at that man again. We stepped into the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, Ethan's voice rang out from the hallway, desperate and raw. "Clara, Toby, wait." He ran toward the elevator, his leather shoes slamming against the floor in quick, frantic steps. But Chloe was faster. She grabbed his arm, her voice tearful and hurt. "Mr. Carter, what are you doing? My luggage is still here. You said you'd help me move my things into the room. You can't just leave me like this." Ethan's steps stopped. He looked back at Chloe, then at the elevator doors slowly sliding shut. In the end, he chose Chloe. Walking out of the apartment complex gates, the night wind hit my face, carrying the crisp coolness of early autumn. Toby leaned against my leg, his small hand holding tight to the hem of my shirt, not making a sound. I knew he was tired, not just his body, but his heart too. A 6-year-old child shouldn't have to go through any of this. I squatted down and lifted him into my arms. He wrapped his arms sweetly around my neck, buried his little face in my shoulder, and mumbled, "Mommy, we're not going back, are we?" "No," I kissed the top of his hair. "We're never going back." He gave a soft and said nothing more. Carrying him with one arm and dragging the suitcase with the other, I sat down on a bench by the roadside. The streetlights were dim, stretching our shadows long and thin. I pulled out my phone and dialed that number again. It rang twice and was answered. The steady voice of the middle-aged man came through, laced with concern and quiet understanding. "Child, how is it?" I took a deep breath. My voice was a little rough, but clearer than ever. "Dad, I've made up my mind. I'm coming home." There was a 2-second silence. Then the man's voice changed, no longer careful and tentative, but warm with a father's eagerness I hadn't heard in years. "Good. Good. Daddy's been waiting for you to say that for far too long." My throat tightened, and I almost couldn't hold back the tears. But his tone turned serious again. "There's something I need to ask you first. All those orders I gave Ethan Carter's company, all those contracts, I did it for you, to keep you comfortable. Now that you've decided to come home, do you want me to cancel all of them?" I froze. So all these years, my father had been secretly helping me. All those business deals, those contracts, those orders Ethan thought he'd won with his own skill, they'd all been because his daughter had married him. I closed my eyes. Ethan's face flashed through my mind, the cold, distant look he gave me in the office when he called me Assistant Carter, the soft, tender smile he gave Chloe, the way he looked down at his phone on that Ferris wheel on his son's birthday. "No," I said. "Dad, don't cancel them yet." "Why?" My father's voice was puzzled. Because I paused, my voice very soft. "I just want to live peacefully for a little while first. No drama, no fighting. Just me and Toby. Dad, right now I just want to settle down. Can you send someone to pick me up?" "Of course." His voice turned sharp and efficient at once. "Where are you right now?" I looked at the street sign and read him the address. "Okay, I've got it. Someone will contact you the second they arrive. Child, stay safe." And then, "Dad, thank you." Silly child. What's there to thank your daddy for? I hung up, held Toby tight in my arms, and stood up. The little boy had fallen asleep, his breathing even and steady, his small hand still holding tight to the collar of my shirt, like he was scared I'd leave him. I kissed his forehead, dragged the suitcase, and walked toward the crosswalk. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, a notification from my work email popping up. I opened it, found the resignation letter I'd written long ago in my drafts, and read it one last time. "Dear Leadership, for personal reasons, I, Clara Bennett, hereby resign from my position as assistant at Nova Enterprises, effective immediately. Thank you for the company's training and care over the years. Best regards, Clara Bennett." It was simple, calm. No complaints, no bitterness, not even a single extra word. Just like the years between Ethan Carter and me. In the end, it had all amounted to nothing more than this. I hit send. A line popped up, email sent. I put my phone back in my pocket and didn't look back once at the lit-up apartment building behind me. Ethan Carter, goodbye. Goodbye forever. The next morning, Ethan Carter arrived at Nova Enterprises right on time. He'd come earlier than usual. The receptionist hadn't even arrived yet. The whole office building was as quiet as an empty city. He walked into his office, slung his jacket over the back of his chair, and glanced around out of habit. Empty. Clara's desk was spotless. The computer was off. The papers were gone. Even the mug she'd used every day for 3 years was nowhere to be seen. Ethan frowned, sat down, and turned on his computer. An unread email sat in his inbox. The sender's name made his jaw tighten, Clara Bennett.
Ethan Carter's POV. I stared at that resignation letter on the screen for a long, long time. For personal reasons, I, Clara Bennett, hereby resign from my position as assistant at Nova Enterprises, effective immediately. I couldn't help but let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Clara, do you think the world's going to end just because you walk out that door? Do you think I'll ever beg you to stay? Go ahead and leave. What woman can I get? Clara's just one person. I'll find a way to bring her back later. When she comes to her senses, she'll come crawling back to me, begging for forgiveness. Besides, the company can run without anyone. Clara isn't that important. The salary I paid her, the house I let her live in, the respect I gave her, wasn't it all charity? Without me, she's nothing. I leaned back in my chair and took a sip of coffee, bitter. I'd forgotten the sugar. Clara used to make it and bring it over every morning. 2 sugars, no milk, just the right temperature every single time. Whatever. I can make it myself from now on. The door was knocked twice, then pushed open without waiting. Chloe walked in swaying her hips, holding a document, wearing that sweet, captivating smile. Mr. Carter, here's last month's report. I redid it for you. Please take a look. She set the file on my desk, then naturally walked around behind me, putting both hands on my shoulders, massaging gently. Mr. Carter, you've been working so hard lately. Your shoulders are all tight. I didn't push her away. Leave it there. I'll look at it later. She didn't stop. Instead, she bent down, bringing her mouth to my ear, her warm breath fanning across my skin, her voice soft and sticky. Mr. Carter, come to my place tonight? I learned a few new dishes. I'll cook for you. I turned my head to look at her. She was wearing a dark green dress today with a very low neckline. Her makeup was perfect, her eyelashes curled, her lips covered in shiny lip gloss. She was indeed better dressed than Clara. Clara always wore no makeup, dressed like a frumpy housewife, embarrassing to take out in public. I smiled and raised my hand to take hers off my shoulder. Not tonight. Chloe pouted, her voice turning whiny. Why not? I have an important dinner tonight. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the traffic below. Nova's biggest partner, Bennett Corporation from the East Coast. Mr. Bennett is coming to town, and I have to handle this myself. Chloe followed, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind, pressing her face to my back, and said in a quiet, sulky voice, "That Mr. Bennett. I've heard all our big orders come from him." Honestly, that idiot Clara left without even finishing the client handover. Now we're stuck with this huge mess. I frowned, but didn't argue with her. So you need to take over this work quickly. I turned around and looked at her, my tone carrying a promise. Especially the Bennett Corporation partnership. No mistakes. If tonight goes well. I pinched her chin and smiled. There's a reward. Chloe's eyes lit up. She stood on tiptoe and kissed my cheek quickly, then smiled, stepped back, picked up the report, held it to her chest, and turned to leave. After 2 steps, she looked back and winked at me. Then I'll wait for my reward, Mr. Carter. I watched her walk out. She swayed her hips a lot, her high heels clicking sharply. Her back was indeed nice to look at. I leaned against my desk, hands in my pockets, my smile slowly growing. Clara? Just a woman with a kid in tow. Without me, where can she go? No money, no connections, can't even find a decent job. When she hits rock bottom, she'll come crying back to me. And me? I have money, status, plenty of women throwing themselves at me. Handling her is just a few words. I sat back down, casually closed the resignation email, and opened next month's performance report. Clara, go ahead. One day, you'll be sorry. The sunlight outside was bright, lighting up the whole office. I didn't look at that empty desk again. At 7 in the evening, I arrived with Chloe at the 5-star hotel's banquet hall in the city center. She wore a wine-red backless gown tonight, her hair up, showing off a slender neck. Her diamond earrings sparkled under the lights. I'll admit, she was beautiful, and she never let me down when it came to showing off. Quite a few people were already there. I looked around. Bennett Corporation hadn't arrived yet, but several important partners were there, some of whom I'd personally called to invite. Mr. Carter, come, sit over here. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Campbell, long time no see. This is my secretary, Chloe Miller. Chloe smiled and nodded nicely, her voice soft. Hello, Mr. Wilson. Hello, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Wilson gave her a once-over, his eyes staying on her face for a moment, then looking behind me like he was searching for someone. Mr. Carter, where's Assistant Carter? Didn't she come with you? My heart jumped, but my face stayed neutral. Clara has resigned. From now on, Secretary Miller will handle all of Nova's communications. Mr. Wilson made an "oh" sound, his smile fading a little, but he didn't say anything else. He clinked his glass against mine. I was about to continue the small talk when I heard some noise at the entrance. I turned my head, thinking Bennett Corporation had arrived, but instead I saw several business owners leaving in small groups. Mr. Lee, Mr. Peterson, why are you leaving so early? I walked over quickly, my tone still friendly. We haven't even had a drink tonight. Mr. Lee glanced at me with a strange look, like he wanted to say something, but swallowed it. He just waved his hand. Mr. Carter, something came up at home tonight. I have to go. Business, we'll talk later. Without waiting for my answer, he turned and left. I froze. Before I could think further, two more owners walked over, nodded at me, and didn't even slow down. Mr. Lewis, you're leaving too? I tried to stop him. Mr. Lewis did stop for a moment, looked me up and down, then glanced at Chloe who'd followed me over. The corner of his mouth pulled up, his smile carrying an unreadable, almost pitying meaning. Mr. Carter, let me be honest with you. The reason we do business with you isn't because of your skills. That assistant of yours, Clara, do you know who she really is? My heart tightened, but I kept smiling. Mr. Lewis, what do you mean? What do I mean? Mr. Lewis gave a cold laugh. Clara's access card can get her straight into Andrew Tower. Andrew Corporation, do you know what that is? Something we could never even dream of reaching? The only reason we work with you is to get a foot in the door through Clara, to get in on Andrew's projects. My smile froze completely. Andrew Corporation. That name sat at the very top of the industry pyramid. Nova, even 10 Novas put together, wasn't fit to shine Andrew's shoes. Now that Clara is gone, what's the point of working with Nova? Mr. Lewis was brutally direct. His voice wasn't loud, but every word stabbed into my heart like a knife. Mr. Carter, take care of yourself. With that, he turned and left. I stood there, as if nailed to the ground. Chloe, not knowing what was going on, came up and pulled at the sleeve of an owner who was about to leave, her voice urgent and trying to please. Mr. Peterson, don't go. Let's talk more. Our Mr. Carter said. That Mr. Peterson didn't even look at her. He flicked his hand like he was shooing away a fly, shaking her off roughly. Don't touch me. I have nothing to talk about with Nova. Chloe stumbled back, her high heels clicking on the floor, nearly falling. Her face turned red and then pale. She bit her lip and looked at me, tears already filling her eyes. Mr. Carter, how can they be like this? I didn't answer her. Only one thought echoed in my mind over and over. Clara knows people at Andrew Corporation. Clara's access card can get her straight into Andrew Tower. Suddenly, so many things came rushing back. All those times I'd gone to close big orders, the other person would always casually ask, how is Clara doing these days? The way those partners looked at Clara, not like an ordinary assistant, but with a kind of respect I had never understood before. I thought they just liked her work ethic. I thought it was Nova's strength that impressed them. I thought it was my own skill, Ethan Carter's. Turns out it was none of that. Turns out they were there because of Clara all along. I slowly walked to a sofa in the corner and sat down heavily, all the strength gone from my body. Chloe came over, looking at me carefully. Mr. Carter, are you okay? So a few owners left. We still have other clients. I looked up at her. Suddenly she seemed so noisy. Suddenly she seemed like nothing. Shut up, I said, so softly it was like talking to myself. She froze, her eyes reddening more, but she didn't speak again. I closed my eyes. Clara's face appeared in my mind. That face, always with no makeup in the office, hair in a simple ponytail, wearing a proper suit, standing before me respectfully calling me Mr. Carter. Chloe stepped over in her high heels and sat down beside me, putting a hand on my arm, her voice soft and trying to please. Mr. Carter, don't be like this. So a few clients left. We signed so many contracts before, that's enough to last a long time. What are you afraid of? She leaned in, and her strong perfume made me dizzy. I was about to speak when my phone buzzed. A familiar name appeared on the screen, Mr. Peterson, who'd worked with us for 3 years. I quickly answered. Before I could say anything, a shout came from the other end. Ethan Carter, did you fire Clara? I was shocked and quickly explained. I didn't fire her. She quit. I don't care whether you fired her or she left on her own. Mr. Peterson's voice yelled like thunder. Ethan Carter, I'm telling you, the only reason I signed that contract with you was because Clara was the go-between. Now that she's gone, there's no point in continuing. The contract is terminated. You figure it out yourself. Mr. Peterson, let me explain. Click. He hung up. My hand holding the phone began to shake. Before I could recover, another call came in. Mr. Carter, this is Lewis. We've decided not to proceed with that previous project. I'll pay the penalty as the contract says. That's it. Mr. Lewis, is there some misunderstanding? Click. Hung up. A third. A fourth. A fifth. Every call said the same thing. Cooperation over. Contract gone. The reason was always the same. Because Clara was gone. I sat on the sofa. The phone slipped from my hand and fell onto the carpet with a dull thud. Chloe was still talking beside me. Mr. Carter, don't worry. Those few small clients are gone, but we still have. Shut up. My voice was rough, nothing like my own. I bent down, picked up the phone, and with shaking fingers scrolled to the number labeled Clara Bennett and dialed it. The number you have dialed is currently busy. I tried again. The number you have dialed is currently busy. I called 3 more times, each with the same tone. She'd blocked me. Clara had blocked me. I whipped my head toward Chloe, almost shouting, "Give me your phone." Shocked by my look, Chloe pulled back, hiding her phone behind her. Mr. Carter, why do you need my phone? Give it to me. Hesitating, she handed it over, but muttered, Mr. Carter, is it really necessary? It's just Clara leaving. Anything she can do, I can do. What's so great about her? Slap. My hand moved faster than my brain. The sharp sound of the slap echoed in the empty banquet hall. Chloe covered her face, tears streaming down instantly. She stared at me with wide eyes, her lips shaking, unable to speak. Who do you think you are? My voice was cold as ice. You're just a toy in the bedroom, a decoration to show off. Do you think you can ever compare to Clara? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Tears fell drop by drop. I didn't look at her again. I picked up her phone and quickly dialed the number I knew by heart. Beep, beep, beep. It connected. Hello. Clara's voice came through, calm as still water. Clara, it's me. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I need to talk to you. Let me explain. Ethan Carter. She cut me off, her voice flat and empty. Start a video call. I have something to show you. The video invitation came through. I accepted. The moment the screen lit up, I froze. Clara was wearing a dark green evening gown, her long hair falling over her shoulders, her makeup perfect, like a completely different person. She stood under a huge crystal chandelier, behind her a breathtaking banquet hall, and beside her stood a group of men, all in tailored suits, young, handsome, distinguished. Some faces even looked familiar, as if I'd seen them on the covers of Forbes and Business Insider. Is that Eli Hale of Hale Industries? My voice sounded hollow, far away. And the one next to him, Cooper Westbrook of Westbrook Realty. I knew them. Those men were well-known young business owners in the state. Any one of them was worth at least as much as me. Clara tilted her head slightly and smiled at the camera. That smile wasn't for me. It was for the people around her. Assured, calm, bright in a way I had never seen on her face. Ethan Carter, listen carefully. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word was clear, sharp as a blade. We have had no marital contact for 5 years. The court has approved our divorce. The divorce agreement is clear. I want no property, and the child belongs solely to me. She paused, her eyes cutting through the screen and landing on my face, as if looking at a stranger. For 5 years, I held this marriage together. 5 years. That's enough. Now, I want to find a responsible father for my child. So, from today on, please stop bothering me. Then she ended the video. The screen went dark, showing my own face, pale, messy, like a fish thrown ashore, gasping for air. My hand holding the phone shook. No, this isn't right. That's not how the story goes. Clara isn't supposed to be like this. She's supposed to be the little assistant who is afraid of me in the office, the wife who waits for me at home until late at night, the woman who can't live without me. But she left. Not only did she leave, but she's doing better than me, 1,000,000 times better. I stood up suddenly, threw the phone to the ground, and it shattered into pieces. Chloe screamed in fear and pulled back into the corner of the sofa. not daring to move. I won't agree to this. I stared at the broken screen on the floor, my voice seeming to come through my teeth. Clara, you think you can just leave? Not that easy. I lifted my head, my eyes burning with a crazy need I didn't even recognize. Even if you leave, the child stays. That's my son, a Carter. You're not taking him away alone. The next day, I walked into the company in a fog. I hadn't slept all night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara in that dark green gown standing among those men and heard her say, "The court has approved the divorce." I tossed and turned, thinking about when she had filed the papers, when she had hired a lawyer, what else she had hidden from me. I even thought about going to find her. But what would I do if I found her? She blocked my number, hung up the video call without another word, wouldn't even say an extra sentence to me. I pushed open the office door and froze. On my desk was a pile of bills, invoices, reimbursement forms, neatly stacked, but each stack was as high as a small hill. When I left, there was nothing. Where did all this come from? Mr. Carter. Chloe's voice came from the doorway, laced with fear. I turned around and saw her standing there holding a cup of coffee, her eyes red and swollen, her face still showing the leftover fear from last night's slap. What is all this? I pointed at the papers on the desk, my voice low and dangerous. She hurried over, put down the coffee, and fumbled to sort through the bills, stammering. These are all end-of-month things, supplier payments, project costs, and final payment checks for a few clients. Clara left right at month end. She used to handle all this, and You what? I stared at her. I'm not very good at it. Her voice grew softer. Clara did all this by herself. I never touched it. My head pounded. What about the others? The finance department? The assistant team? I gritted my teeth. Chloe kept her head down, her voice almost not heard. I asked them. They said Clara always handled these things alone. They only write down the accounts. They don't do the matching. And several clients have special payment terms that only Clara knew how to do. I stood up quickly, my chair sliding back and hitting the wall with a loud bang. So what you're saying is, I said each word slowly, venom in every syllable. A company this big, all these people, without Clara, can't even balance the goddamn books. Chloe jumped, her shoulders pulling in. Tears filled her eyes again. She shook her head wildly, then nodded, and finally couldn't say anything at all. I took a deep breath, walked to the desk, picked up a bill at random, and flipped through a couple of pages. The notes were thick, every transaction written clearly, project, date, payment method, contact person, all in Clara's neat handwriting. I flipped through several more. Everyone was the same. Some projects I didn't even remember, but she remembered every detail, every step. I threw the bills back on the desk and rubbed my head. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind, cold and sharp. All those times I could mess around with Chloe in the office, take her out to dinner, ride the Ferris wheel, joke in the break room, and comfortably leave everything at home and at the company aside. It wasn't because I was so good. It was because Clara was there. She carried everything. Company accounts, project negotiations, client care, household expenses, childcare. Even my coffee was made and brought to my desk by her every single morning. I only needed to show up where I was supposed to be, sign a few papers, say a few words. She did everything else. And I thought it was what I deserved. I thought the company would run fine without her. I thought she was just an insignificant assistant who didn't matter. Mr. Carter, Chloe said carefully, her tone trying to please, don't be angry. I'll learn slowly. I can definitely learn. I turned to look at her. She stood there, her makeup still perfect, her dress still pretty, but her eyes were full of panic and guilt. She couldn't even do one report right, couldn't keep one client. How could she compare to Clara? You'll learn? I gave a cold laugh. What good will it do when you learn? By the time you learn, the company might not even be here anymore. Her face went white. I ignored her, picked up my phone, and scrolled through my contacts again and again, trying to find a way to reach Clara. But her number was blocked, her socials were gone, her desk was empty. I couldn't even find a trace of her. Suddenly, my chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe.
For years pining in secret, 6 years in a hollow marriage. I waited for one person for 10 whole years. Waited for him to turn around, to see me, to keep that drunken promise he didn't even remember making. In the end, all I got was a cold pizza and the reflection of him holding another woman on a Ferris wheel. But standing here now, with the sea breeze blowing, the sun shining, and Toby laughing not far away, I suddenly felt it was worth it. Those years weren't wasted. Because I waited, I learned that it's not worth waiting any longer. Sometimes, you have to let go. Being held back by one person for too long is meaningless. I brushed my hair back and walked toward Toby. He was squatted in front of a sand hole, completely absorbed in pouring water into it, talking to himself. "Mommy, look at the moat I dug." He looked up, his face covered in sand, smiling to show the gap where his 2 front teeth were missing. I squatted down and wiped the sand off the tip of his nose. Very nice. Better than the ones I used to dig. He gave a proud humph and went back to digging. I looked up at the endless sea. The sky was very blue, the clouds very white, the world very big. I still have a long way to go. Walking alone is fine too. The end.
This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories and stay tuned for what's next.